Poor girl went into the wrong room and slept in her millionaire boss's bed. He fell madly in love. The hallway lights of the Grandview Hotel glowed soft and gold against the midnight rain outside. The sound of distant thunder echoed through the marble corridor as Lila Carter, her uniform wrinkled. Her eyes half shut from exhaustion, dragged the cleaning cart toward what she thought was the staff room. It had been a brutal double shift, 14 hours on her feet, her hands red from scrubbing and her stomach aching from the vending machine dinner she'd skipped. "Room 806, she murmured, rubbing her eyes. The tag on her keycard blurred from fatigue. She stopped in front of room 808, slid the card in, and the door beeped green. Relief washed over her. She pushed inside, the scent of cologne and fresh linen drifting toward her. "Guess someone forgot to turn off the lights," she whispered, too tired to notice the polished leather shoes by the bed or the half-open suitcase near the dresser. Her head spun as she sat on the edge of the mattress, too soft, too warm, too perfect. The world dimmed, and within seconds she was asleep, still wearing her work apron. 2 hours later, the sound of a key turning woke no one. Ethan Cole, the owner of the entire hotel chain, stepped in, his tie loosened, his eyes heavy from another late-night board meeting. He froze. There was someone in his bed. For a heartbeat, he thought he was hallucinating. Then he saw her, a girl curled under his gray comforter, hair spilling across the pillow, face pale but peaceful. His instinct should have been to call security, but something stopped him. Maybe it was the way she looked, utterly lost, small, fragile in the sea of silk sheets. Ethan set his briefcase down quietly. He took a step closer, noticing the faint calluses on her fingers, the smudge of cleaning spray still staining her sleeve. She wasn't a thief. She was one of his employees, a tired one. He exhaled slowly, the corner of his mouth softening. Instead of waking her, he pulled the blanket higher over her shoulders and switched off the lamp. "Sleep, whoever you are," he murmured under his breath. "You probably need it more than I do." The next morning, sunlight spilled across the white curtains. Lila stirred, disoriented, blinking at the expensive decor around her. Gold-framed art, crystal lamps, Egyptian cotton sheets. Her heart stuttered. Oh no. She sat up, realization crashing in like a wave. This wasn't the staff dorm. It was a guest suite, a luxury one. Panic flared as she grabbed her things and rushed to the door, only to freeze when it opened from the outside. Standing there in a tailored navy suit was the man from every company newsletter, the man whose signature hung on every paycheck, Ethan Cole. Their eyes met hers, wide with horror, his calm but unreadable. "Good morning," he said evenly. "Sleep well?" The tray of towels fell from her hands with a crash. Lila's voice trembled. I thought this was the staff room. I swear I didn't." Ethan raised a hand gently, his tone almost amused. "Relax, no one's in trouble." His gaze softened as he noticed the exhaustion behind her embarrassment. "Next time, try room 806. Lila's face flushed crimson. "I'm so sorry, sir. It won't happen again." She bolted out, mortified, leaving behind a faint scent of soap and nerves. Ethan stood there for a long moment, glancing at the pillow still warm from where she'd slept. A slow, unexpected smile tugged at his lips. He didn't know her name, but something about that small, chaotic encounter refused to leave his mind. And just like that, a mistake became the beginning of something neither of them could have imagined. Hello everyone. Before we continue, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. The next morning at the Grandview Hotel, everything seemed to move faster than usual. Lila rushed through the staff corridor, clutching her cleaning list, her cheeks still burning from what had happened in room 808. Every time she closed her eyes, she could see the shocked face of Ethan Cole, the CEO himself, standing in the doorway. She had spent the entire night replaying the scene, wishing she could erase it from her memory. But reality did not care about wishes. By noon, her supervisor called her into the office. "Lila Carter," the woman said sharply, I heard there was an incident on the VIP floor last night. Care to explain why you were inside the owner's suite? Lila's voice came out small. It was a mistake, ma'am. I was exhausted and read the room number wrong. The supervisor sighed, clearly ready to fire her, when a knock on the door interrupted them. Ethan Cole stepped in, composed, calm, and very much in control. The supervisor straightened immediately. "Mr. Cole, sir, I was just—" Ethan raised a hand. "It is fine. Miss Carter can leave. I will handle this personally." Lila froze, heart pounding. When she followed him into the hallway, she expected security, maybe even a dismissal letter. Instead, he simply said, "You look like you need coffee." She blinked, confused. "Excuse me?" He nodded toward the staff cafe. "Let's talk." "I do not bite." 5 minutes later, they sat across from each other in a small corner booth, the smell of burnt espresso between them. Lila could barely lift her eyes. "Sir, I really am sorry. I was just tired," and Ethan smiled faintly. "You work double shifts often?" "Every week," she admitted, twisting her napkin. "My mother is recovering from surgery. The hospital bills do not wait." There was no self-pity in her tone, just weary honesty. Ethan studied her for a moment, realizing she had probably never told anyone that. "You know," he said quietly, "most people would have blamed the system or their boss. You simply kept working." Lila gave a small, embarrassed laugh. Bills do not pay themselves. Something in that answer tugged at him. In a world full of people who demanded more, she asked for nothing. "I have an opening," he said finally. "My personal assistant is on leave for a few weeks. You know this hotel better than anyone. Would you consider filling in?" Lila stared at him, stunned. "Me? Sir, I am just a cleaner. I would not know where to start." Ethan leaned back, his tone light but firm. "Then it will be a learning opportunity. Think of it as temporary." She hesitated, unsure whether this was a test or a trap. "If I say yes, what exactly would I have to do?" "Mostly scheduling, some errands, and reminding me to eat lunch," he said, half smiling. "I am terrible at that." Against every instinct screaming that this was insane, she nodded. "All right, I will try." "Good," he said, standing. "Report to the executive floor tomorrow morning." As he left, Lila sat frozen, her hands trembling slightly. She had walked into the wrong room by accident, and somehow it had led her here. The next day, when she entered his office, it felt like stepping into another world. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the New York skyline, sunlight pouring across polished wood floors. Ethan was already there, typing at his desk, a black coffee in hand. He looked up and smiled briefly. "Morning, Miss Carter. Ready to start?" "Yes, sir," she managed. For the next hours, she shadowed him through meetings, calls, and documents she barely understood. But Ethan was patient, explaining the basics with surprising warmth. When she tripped over a cord or spilled coffee on herself, he only chuckled softly. "Relax," he said once. "You are not the first person to make a mess in this office, just the first one to apologize before I even noticed." By evening, as she organized the files on his desk, Lila found a framed photo tucked behind the computer, a younger Ethan shaking hands with investors, his smile genuine, hopeful. She wondered when that smile had turned into the polite mask he wore now. When she turned around, he was watching her. "You are different," he said. "Different how?" "You do not pretend," he replied simply. "Most people here do." For the first time that day, Lila smiled back. "Maybe I am too tired to pretend." Ethan laughed quietly, and something in the air shifted, subtle but undeniable. Neither of them knew it yet, but what started as a mistake was slowly becoming something far more dangerous, a connection neither money nor status could control. Weeks passed, and the rhythm between Lila and Ethan settled into something strangely easy. Every morning she brought him his coffee exactly the way he liked it, black with 1 sugar, and every evening she stayed late to organize the endless paperwork that seemed to follow him like a shadow. She learned that he hated small talk when a meeting ended, and that he had a quiet habit of staring out the window before signing anything important. At first, she thought it was just a nervous tic, but then she noticed his eyes always went to the same spot, the city's skyline where the old community shelter stood. One day, curiosity got the better of her. "You look at that building a lot," she said softly. "Something special about it?" Ethan hesitated, then shrugged. "It was my mother's. She ran it before she passed. I kept it running, but I have not been back in years." His tone carried no pride, only distance. Lila said nothing more, but that night she looked up the shelter online and saw that it was struggling to stay open. She saved the article on her phone, wondering if he already knew. The next morning, Ethan found her asleep at her desk, cheek pressed against a pile of files. The sight made him smile before he could stop himself. He draped his jacket over her shoulders quietly, the same instinct he had that night in his suite. Something about her presence softened the sharp edges of his world. She worked hard, spoke honestly, and never once treated him like a trophy of wealth. Later that day, during a company meeting, Ethan caught her sketching in the corner of her notepad a small drawing of the city skyline, complete with the shelter's faded sign. When their eyes met, she flushed and tried to cover it. "I am sorry, sir. I should not have—" He shook his head, amused. "You draw?" "A little. It helps me think," she admitted. "You are good," he said simply. "Do you ever show anyone?" She laughed quietly. "No one would care about my doodles." "I care," he said, and for a moment, the room felt too quiet. Later he found that sketch left behind on her desk and kept it, tucked inside his planner like a secret reminder. Over the next few weeks, Lila's confidence grew. She started speaking up in meetings, suggesting changes to the hotel's guest experience program. Her ideas were simple but effective, grounded in empathy, the kind that came from years of serving people instead of managing them. Ethan listened, often pretending to disagree just to see her argue back with that spark in her eyes. It had been years since anyone challenged him without agenda or fear. One rainy Friday night, they both stayed late, the office glowing in warm lamplight. The storm outside made the windows rattle. Lila stood by the glass, watching the lights blur through raindrops. "It is beautiful," she murmured. Ethan joined her, holding 2 cups of coffee. "It is New York," he said. "Always raining when you need clarity." She smiled at that. "Do you ever wish you could disappear for a while? No meetings, no board, no investors, just peace?" He looked at her, truly looked at her, and said quietly, "Every day." Their eyes met in the reflection of the glass, and something unspoken passed between them, fragile but real. He wanted to tell her how much he admired her resilience, how she reminded him of everything he had lost touch with, but he stayed silent, afraid to ruin it. The next morning, when Lila arrived, she found a small envelope on her desk. Inside was a simple note in Ethan's handwriting. "For your sketches, do not stop drawing." Alongside it was a brand new set of pencils and a sketchbook wrapped in brown paper. Her throat tightened as she whispered to herself, "He remembered." From that day, she started carrying the sketchbook everywhere, filling it with small glimpses of her world: coffee cups, the hotel lobby, a sparrow resting on the window ledge. She did not know that Ethan often paused at her desk after hours, looking at the pages she left open. To him, every drawing was proof of something he had almost forgotten to believe in: kindness, simplicity, and the quiet beauty of imperfection. Neither of them said it aloud, but both felt the same growing pull, the dangerous kind that begins not with words, but with the silence that means everything. Autumn slipped quietly into the city, turning the trees outside the Grandview Hotel a soft shade of gold. Lila's days followed a rhythm now, steady but filled with small moments that made her heart race in ways she tried to ignore. She told herself Ethan Cole was still her boss, that their connection was nothing more than mutual respect. But sometimes, when their hands brushed while passing papers, or when he looked at her across the conference table with that faint, knowing smile, her chest tightened in a way she could not explain. One evening, Ethan invited her to accompany him to a charity gala hosted by the company's board. "You have earned it," he said simply. "You helped design half the new guest program. You should see how people respond." Lila hesitated, glancing at her worn shoes. "I do not have anything to wear for an event like that." Ethan only smiled, then let the company handle it. The next day, a neatly wrapped box arrived at her desk. Inside was a simple but elegant navy gown, not too flashy, just timeless. A note on top read, "You belong in every room you walk into." That night, the ballroom glittered with chandeliers and laughter. Lila stepped in beside Ethan, feeling completely out of place among the gowns and tuxedos. Yet the way he looked at her as if the room had fallen away made her forget her fears for a moment. "You look beautiful," he said softly, offering his arm. "Do not worry, you fit here more than most." As the night went on, she found herself laughing at his dry humor, admiring how he handled endless conversations with warmth but distance. He always seemed to exist slightly apart, like a man surrounded by light but never touched by it. When a board member made a dismissive remark about overworked staff, Lila's smile faltered. Ethan caught it instantly. He turned to the man, his voice calm but sharp. "Our staff are the reason we stand here celebrating. Maybe we should remember that." The table fell silent. Lila glanced at him, eyes wide with gratitude. He simply gave a small shrug, as if defending her was the most natural thing in the world. Later, on the balcony overlooking the city, they stood side by side in the cool air. "You did not have to say that," she said quietly. "I did," he replied. "People forget where kindness lives when they are surrounded by luxury." She smiled faintly. "You talk like someone who misses being ordinary." Ethan looked out at the skyline. "Maybe I do." The wind tugged at her hair, and for a moment he reached out instinctively, tucking a loose strand behind her ear. The gesture was brief but electric. Their eyes met, and silence hung heavy between them. Neither spoke, both aware of the invisible line that could not be crossed. Back inside, as music swelled and lights flickered over the dance floor, Ethan excused himself to greet a group of investors. Lila wandered toward the art display near the lobby, her fingers brushing the frame of a painting. One of the hotel's event planners approached her, whispering, "You must be Mr. Cole's date. Everyone has been talking." Lila shook her head quickly. "No, I am just his assistant." But the woman's knowing smile made her stomach twist. Suddenly, Lila felt the weight of every gaze in the room. She slipped away quietly, stepping out into the cold night. Moments later, Ethan found her standing near the fountain outside, arms wrapped around herself. "You disappeared," he said gently. "I just needed some air," she murmured. "I do not belong in there, Ethan," he sighed. "Lila, do not say that." "It is true," she insisted. "I am not like them. I clean rooms. I do not wear gowns or drink champagne for a living." "And yet," he said, stepping closer, "you make everyone in that room feel small just by being real." She looked up, tears stinging her eyes. "Why are you being so kind to me?" Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you as my employee." Her breath caught. For a heartbeat, the world was still until she stepped back, shaking her head. "We cannot, Ethan. It is wrong." He nodded slowly, his eyes shadowed with something deeper than regret. "Maybe, but it does not make it untrue." The city lights shimmered behind them, and though neither said another word, both knew the line between professionalism and something far more dangerous had already blurred beyond repair. The days after the gala felt heavier, as if something had shifted between them that neither dared to name. Ethan tried to keep his distance, burying himself in meetings and travel, while Lila focused on her work with quiet determination. But silence can only stretch so far before it starts to ache. Every time he passed her desk and caught a glimpse of the sketchbook she always carried, a flicker of guilt mixed with longing stirred inside him. One morning he found her in the lobby, directing the staff with calm confidence. She was explaining to the new trainees how to treat guests with empathy, reminding them that every person who walks through these doors has a story. Her words stopped him in his tracks. That was what he had forgotten years ago, before money and headlines and deals had turned his world into numbers. Later that evening, when the hotel quieted down, he approached her desk. "You are still here," he said softly. She smiled without looking up. "Someone has to finish the reports." He hesitated, then asked, "Do you have plans tonight?" Her pen froze midair. If this is about work, it is not, he interrupted gently. There is something I want to show you. Against her better judgment, she agreed. Half an hour later, they stood outside the old community shelter his mother once ran. The building was worn but still standing, the faded letters barely visible under the streetlight. You said this place belonged to your mother, Lila said quietly. It did, he replied. After she died, I kept funding it, but I never came back. I thought success meant moving forward, not looking back. I was wrong. Lila stepped inside with him. The air smelled of dust and memory, and in the corner, a cracked picture frame still held a photo of smiling children. She helped people here, Lila said, brushing her fingers over the frame. You should keep that alive. Ethan nodded slowly. I want to, but I need someone who understands what compassion looks like in action. Someone who remembers where kindness begins. His eyes met hers. Someone like you. Her heart thudded painfully. Ethan, do not say things you do not mean. I mean every word, he said. You reminded me what my mother built this company for. You reminded me what I lost. She shook her head, trying to steady her breath. You cannot mix feelings with gratitude. That is not love, Ethan. That is loneliness. Then maybe I am lonely, he admitted, his voice breaking slightly. But when you walked into my life by mistake or fate, it felt like the first real thing in years. Tears pricked at her eyes. You are my boss, she whispered. People will talk. They already do. Let them, he said. They do not know you. They do not know us. The sound of rain began to patter against the roof. Soft at first, then heavier. Lila looked away, the flicker of lightning casting fleeting shadows across the dusty room. You do not even know if I will stay, she said. You could fire me tomorrow. He stepped closer, his tone firm. I will not, but I cannot keep pretending this is just work. She met his gaze then, seeing the truth written all over him, raw, unguarded, human. For a moment neither moved. Then a loud crash of thunder jolted them apart, reminding them of the world waiting outside these fragile walls. We should go, she said quickly, gathering her coat. Ethan nodded, though disappointment clouded his face. As they stepped into the rain, he held his umbrella over her, but the storm was relentless. By the time they reached the car, they were both soaked, laughing breathlessly at the absurdity of it all. In that fleeting second, something pure cut through the tension, a reminder of the night she had fallen asleep in the wrong room, and how everything began with one innocent mistake. As he opened the car door for her, she caught his wrist, her voice trembling. Promise me something, she said. Do not lose what you found tonight. He looked at her for a long moment, rain dripping from his hair, then nodded. Only if you promise the same. They drove back in silence, the city lights blurring through the wet windshield, each lost in thought but bound by the same unspoken truth. No matter how much they tried to deny it, fate had already chosen for them. The following week, the air inside the hotel seemed to hum with tension that only they could feel. Lila tried to bury herself in work, keeping her distance, but every time she walked past Ethan's office, she could sense his eyes following her. He was careful, professional, polite to a fault, yet something about his silence carried more weight than words ever could. The night at the shelter lingered between them like an unfinished confession. One afternoon, Ethan called her into his office. His tone was even, but his gaze softened as he gestured for her to sit. I have been thinking about what you said, he began, about keeping my mother's legacy alive. He turned his laptop toward her, showing plans for a new initiative, the Haven Project. It was a community program that would restore the shelter and expand it into a foundation for struggling families and young artists. This is your idea, she said quietly. Ours, he corrected. You inspired it. Lila smiled faintly. It is beautiful, Ethan. But why me? Because you see people the way she did, he said. Not as clients or numbers, but as lives. His sincerity left her speechless. She looked at the plans again, her heart swelling with pride and fear all at once. If this happens, it will change lives, she whispered. It will, he said. And I want you to lead it. Lila blinked in shock. Me? Ethan? I do not even have a degree in management. You have heart, he replied simply. That is something you cannot buy. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she nodded slowly. I will try. Ethan smiled for the first time in days. That is all I ask. In the weeks that followed, Lila threw herself into the project. Meetings, site visits, fundraising events, her days became a whirlwind of work and hope. The more she achieved, the more Ethan seemed to watch from the background, proud but distant, as if afraid to taint what they had built with anything personal. Still, small moments slipped through. A lingering glance in the elevator, a shared laugh over coffee, the way his hand brushed hers when passing a document. Each one chipped away at the walls they had tried to rebuild. One evening, as the project neared its launch, Ethan found her in the rooftop garden of the hotel, her sketchbook open on her lap. The city stretched endlessly below, glittering like a sea of fireflies. You should be celebrating, he said, walking closer. The board just approved full funding. She looked up, smiling softly. I wanted to be alone for a bit. It feels unreal. He sat beside her, the wind ruffling his hair. You earned it, Lila. You turned a forgotten building into something alive again. She glanced at him, her eyes shining. You helped. You gave me a reason, he said. For years, everything I built was just numbers. You reminded me that success means nothing if you forget to feel. Her heart tightened at his words. Ethan, she said gently, you cannot say things like that. Why not? He asked, his voice low. Because it makes it harder to stay professional. Maybe professionalism is overrated, he said with a faint smile. She laughed softly, but her hands trembled. Do not make me believe in something we cannot have. He turned toward her, his expression serious now. Maybe we already do. The wind carried his words between them, fragile but impossible to ignore. For a moment the city disappeared, and all that existed was the quiet rhythm of their breathing. But before either could speak again, the rooftop door swung open. It was Andrew, one of the senior board members, his expression sharp with suspicion. Mr. Cole, he said coldly, I did not expect to find you here, with her. Lila's stomach dropped as Andrew's gaze turned to her, judgment flashing in his eyes. I hope this is not what it looks like. Ethan straightened, his tone controlled. It is not. We were discussing the project. Andrew gave a tight smile. Of course, I will see you at the board meeting tomorrow. As he left, the air between them thickened with dread. Lila stood, her voice barely above a whisper. He thinks we are... Let him think what he wants, Ethan interrupted. I will handle it. No, she said quickly. Do not defend me. It will only make things worse. He looked at her, torn between anger and admiration. You should not have to fight alone. I have done it my whole life, she said softly. Then with one last glance, she walked away, leaving him alone under the city lights, his heart caught between duty and desire. The next morning, the storm that had begun on the rooftop found its echo inside the company walls. Rumors spread faster than truth ever could. By noon, everyone seemed to know that Ethan Cole had been seen alone with his assistant late at night, and by afternoon, whispers had turned into speculation. Lila could feel the weight of the stairs wherever she went, the sudden hush when she entered the break room, the pitying glances from the staff she once worked beside. She wanted to believe it would pass, but she had seen what gossip could do. When she arrived at Ethan's office, his usually calm face was lined with frustration. The board called an emergency meeting, he said grimly. They think our relationship is inappropriate. Lila swallowed hard. Relationship? Ethan, there is nothing to... I know, he interrupted, but they do not care. They want a reason to control me, and this is it. He looked at her, his voice softer now. I can handle the board, but I will not let them drag your name through the mud. She shook her head quickly. You cannot fight them. If they think I am a problem, I will resign. No, he said, standing. I will not let you take the blame for something that does not exist. "Ethan, please," she whispered, her throat tightening. "This project, the Haven, it means everything. If I leave quietly, they will move on. You can protect it." He stared at her, the realization cutting deeper than he expected. "You are asking me to let you go." "I am asking you to save what we built," she said softly. For a moment, the world outside seemed to stop. Then Ethan exhaled slowly and nodded. "If that is what you want, I will not stop you." That afternoon, she cleared her desk while the others pretended not to watch. Her sketchbook lay open for a moment, a small drawing of the shelter's front door shaded with gentle precision. She tore it out, folded it, and slipped it into Ethan's inbox before walking away without looking back. When she stepped into the elevator, the doors closing behind her felt like a final chapter sealing shut. The following week, Ethan faced the boardroom alone. The men and women seated around the table looked at him with polite hostility. "Your actions," Andrew began, "have put this company's image at risk. Employees are talking. Investors are asking questions." Ethan's tone was measured but firm. "The rumors are false. Miss Carter's contributions to the Haven project are extraordinary, and I will not allow her name to be disrespected." Andrew smirked. "Then why did she resign?" "Because she has integrity," Ethan shot back. "Something this board seems to have forgotten." The room fell silent. Ethan straightened his tie, his eyes cold. "You can question my leadership, but do not question her character." When the meeting ended, he walked out without another word, the sound of his footsteps echoing down the marble hallway. That night, he returned to his penthouse, the city sprawling endlessly below. On his desk lay the folded paper she had left behind. He unfolded it carefully. It was the sketch of the shelter, drawn with her usual delicate lines. At the bottom, she had written 5 words: "Keep the doors open, always." Ethan sat down, the weight of it settling over him. He realized he had spent years building an empire, but in losing her, he had lost the only person who reminded him what it was all for. Across town, Lila started working part-time at a small art studio, her hands stained with graphite and paint again. The Haven project went on without her, but every time she passed the construction site, she paused, watching it rise from the ground like hope rebuilt. One evening, she saw a group of volunteers carrying supplies through the doors, laughing under a new banner that read, "Opening soon." Her heart ached with pride and sadness all at once. As she turned to leave, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was just one sentence, but it made her breath catch. "We kept the doors open." "Thank you, Lila." She stared at it for a long moment, a tear slipping down her cheek, and whispered into the fading light, "You kept your promise, Ethan." In the distance, the city glowed, alive, with the same heartbeat that had started in one wrong room and turned into something that even rumors could not destroy. 6 months passed, and the Grandview Hotel glimmered brighter than ever, but for Ethan, the success felt hollow. The Haven project had officially opened, drawing praise from the media and gratitude from the community. Yet every ribbon he cut and every handshake he accepted only reminded him of the one person missing from it all, Lila. Her absence lingered in every corner of his world, from the quiet mornings when he reached for coffee meant to share, to the late nights when he caught himself rereading her last note, "Keep the doors open, always." He had done that, but somehow, he had closed every other door in his life. Across the city, Lila's art career had begun to bloom in small but meaningful ways. The studio where she worked had hosted its first exhibition, and to her surprise, several pieces sold. People seemed drawn to the warmth in her sketches, the way she captured hope in places others overlooked. One afternoon, as she packed up her easel after class, her mentor handed her an envelope. "This came for you," the older woman said. Lila frowned. There was no return name, only a seal embossed with the familiar logo of Cole Enterprises. Her heart stuttered. Inside was a simple invitation: the Haven Project, Grand Exhibition, celebrating the art of compassion. At the bottom, in Ethan's handwriting, were the words, "Your art started this. It deserves to be seen." For a long time, she just stared at it, torn between pride and fear. Part of her wanted to stay hidden, to let him continue without reopening old wounds. But another part quieter yet stronger, whispered that maybe this was the moment to face what she had been avoiding. The night of the exhibition arrived with the city dressed in light. The renovated shelter had transformed into a space of life and laughter, its walls lined with photographs and sketches from the community. Lila hesitated at the entrance, clutching her small purse, ready to turn back until she saw it. On the central wall hung one of her old drawings, enlarged and framed under the spotlight. It was her sketch of the shelter's front door, the same one she had left for Ethan months ago. But now, below the drawing, a plaque read, "The art of Lila Carter, the heart behind the haven." Her breath caught. Around her, people murmured admiration, unaware that the artist stood among them. And then she saw him. Ethan, standing near the display, talking to a reporter, dressed sharply but with a gentleness she had never noticed before. When their eyes met across the crowd, time seemed to slow. He excused himself and walked toward her, his expression a mixture of disbelief and relief. "You came?" he said quietly. "I was not sure you would." Lila's voice trembled. "You should not have used my work." "I had to," he said. "This project began with you. Every person we helped, every door we opened, it all came from your heart." She shook her head, trying to hide the emotion rising in her chest. "You did that, Ethan. Not me." "No," he said, stepping closer. "You reminded me who I was before success turned me into someone else." The music softened, and the crowd around them faded into background noise. "You once told me not to lose what I found that night," he continued. "I did not. I found you, Lila." Her eyes filled with tears. "Ethan, please do not say things you cannot keep." "I mean them," he said simply. "Every word." For a moment neither spoke. Then Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a familiar silver chain, polished but worn. "You left this in my room the night we met," he said. "I kept it. It reminded me that fate does not make mistakes, even when we do." Lila stared at the necklace, her heart trembling. "I thought I lost it forever." "You did not," he said softly. "Just like I never lost you." He held it out, and when her fingers brushed his, the noise of the world seemed to vanish. For the first time in months, she smiled, small, real, and full of everything words could not express. Around them, applause erupted as the exhibition host announced the success of the Haven. But for Ethan and Lila, it was just a quiet moment under soft lights, where forgiveness finally found its way home. The weeks following the exhibition moved like a dream neither of them wanted to wake from. The Haven project became a symbol of rebirth in the city. But for Ethan and Lila, it was something far more personal. It was the place where pain had turned into purpose. Since that night, they had seen each other often, quietly, away from cameras and curious eyes. What began as polite conversations grew into long walks through the city, shared dinners in quiet corners, and moments that no longer needed words. Ethan had changed. The sharp edges of his ambition had softened into something gentler, steadier. And Lila, once afraid to take up space in his world, now walked beside him as his equal. One Sunday morning, as sunlight streamed through the windows of the restored community center, Lila arrived early to prepare an art class for the neighborhood kids. She was arranging paintbrushes when Ethan walked in, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You always beat everyone here," he said with a smile. "Old habits," she replied. "I like seeing the place before it fills with noise." He handed her the cup and glanced around the bright room filled with laughter and color. "It is strange," he said softly. "This building used to be silent. Now it feels alive again." "You made that happen," she said. He shook his head. "We did." For a moment they stood in that quiet understanding. 2 lives that had once collided by accident, now perfectly aligned. When the class began, Lila guided the children through simple sketches of houses and trees. Ethan watched from the doorway, his heart full at the sight of her surrounded by joy. A little girl tugged at Lila's sleeve and asked, "Miss Lila, are you married?" Lila laughed, blushing slightly. "No, not yet." The child grinned. "You should marry someone nice. Maybe Mr. Cole." The room erupted in giggles, and Ethan could not help but laugh too. Lila shot him a playful glare, but her smile lingered even after the class ended. That evening, as the sun set over the city, Ethan invited her to the rooftop of the hotel, the same place where everything had once gone wrong. This time, it was different. The air was calm, the skyline painted gold by the fading light. "Why here?" she asked softly. "Because this is where I almost lost you," he said. He took a deep breath and pulled from his pocket a small velvet box. "And I do not want to make that mistake again." Lila froze, eyes wide as he opened it. Inside was not a diamond, but something far more meaningful, the silver necklace she had once lost, now restored and joined with a delicate ring that shimmered under the evening light. "You do not owe me anything," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "This is not about owing," he said, stepping closer. "This is about choosing." "I choose you, Lila. Every day, every mistake, every second of the life I have left." Her hands trembled as she touched the necklace ring combination, her voice barely audible. "Ethan, I never thought—" "Neither did I," he interrupted gently. But fate clearly had other plans. The city lights blinked to life below them, and as the wind brushed against their faces, she nodded, her smile breaking through tears. "Then I guess I am done running from fate." Ethan's breath caught, and when she reached for his hand, it felt like the world finally exhaled. In the months that followed, their story became known not as a scandal but as a miracle. Two people from different worlds, brought together by one small mistake that changed everything. The Haven Foundation flourished, expanding across the country to help thousands of families. At the grand reopening gala, Ethan and Lila stood side by side, no longer boss and employee but partners in every sense. As the cameras flashed, someone asked what inspired the project's name. Ethan smiled and glanced at her. "It started with the wrong room," he said. "And somehow it led me to the right person." The crowd laughed, and Lila squeezed his hand, whispering, "Best mistake we ever made." Under the soft glow of the lights, surrounded by the laughter of people they had helped, they shared a quiet kiss, not the dramatic kind from fairy tales, but the real kind that comes after storms, built on faith, forgiveness, and the simple miracle of finding home in each other.